This is Be Water, composed by me, Annalinda Metzner, with the beautiful soprano of Allison Tynes.
Here is the gift of these magical tears. Water, water, you be water. This water is clear, swim in it, float in it. Breathe water, you. Water is our element, the place we live, the air we breathe. Touch me, bathe me, rock me, cradle me. There is nothing to separate us. No walls, no walls. Nothing holds us. Nothing holds us back, for we are water. Hi, Sai. Say hi. You say hi. Say hi. Yeah.
Sai, come over here.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley Social Distancing Service. I'm Evan Yannick, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. And yes, my hair is getting quite long. I'm glad that you're watching. I know that the uncertain times that we are in now are a heavy weight and can be overwhelming, but please know that your church family is thinking of you. Please use this church family as a resource. Reach out through phone or email if you just want to talk. I know that there will be someone ready to listen. Here are some words from UU Minister Dan Lambert. You are welcome here, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You are welcome to join us as we proclaim worth in our spiritual journeys. You are welcome to join us as we sing songs that uplift our very beings. You are welcome to join us in community as we learn, live, and love together. All are welcome as we worship that which gives us each meaning and value. No matter what you call this hour or this gathering of people, we worship as one body, illuminated by the light of the chalice. I want to thank everyone who contributed to the survey that was sent out this week regarding the future of our services. It seems that the overwhelming amount of the congregation prefers for the foreseeable future to remain virtual. However, we are discussing ways that some of us may gather safely in the future. We will continue to provide these Sunday services as long as is necessary so that all feel a part of our church. And now, I have a special guest to start our service.
And now, let the service begin.
I'm Reverend Michael Carter. Glad you're with us again this Sunday, and we certainly appreciate it. We're getting a lot of hits, so that means people are, the hits just keep on coming, so we're getting a larger audience, which we love. I'm going to start our opening words this morning. Reverend Michael Carter from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swananoa Valley in the beautiful, beautiful mountains of Western North Carolina. Our chalice. And our opening words this morning. We gather as a community of memory and a community of hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities of what? Of love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks come together and meet and merge, and that way we can bring both warmth and light to a beautiful but yet broken world.
This is hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Our reading in the Gray Hymnal this morning is number 536, and it's simply entitled Morning Poem by Mary Oliver. Every morning the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night that turn into leaves again, and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along with the soft trails for hours. Your imagination will be everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that's heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to just keep on pushing, there is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly the way it wants it to be. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly each and every morning, whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, or whether or not you've even ever dared to pray.
Now is the time in our service where we make space for joys and concerns that the congregation may hold. I've asked that people send in videos or emails with joys and concerns that are going on in their lives, but this week I received none. So I do have a joy this week. As many of you know, I started a new job in January, and this week I was offered a promotion. So I'm very excited and honored that they thought highly enough of the work that I've done in the few months I've been with the company. But I'll start a new role in the finance department in June. And for those of you who didn't send in any joys or concerns, please know that we hold you in our hearts.
I came upon a tree one day in my forest many years ago, just off the busy trail, down by the creek that trickled into the pond. This tree was bent and twisted over and over like a piece of untidy clay, hastily sculpted by a child. The tree ultimately was tall, taller than the rest, and seemed to glow at its peak, where it met the blue sky. And as I often did, I imagined this tree's journey over its long, arduous, and most likely unwitnessed life, bending first there because it was young and immature as the first storm pounded its weak trunk, then twisted there by that long winter where the wind blew mostly northeast, and this tree had to give just enough that way or be ripped up by its roots. There, a year of drought, and there, a year of mild blight, but always years in between of steady vertical climb, like a compass pointing straight up, a dedication toward reaching the wide open sky. It was clear the years of perfect rain, the many years of ideal conditions in the forest. I doubt the tree would have survived otherwise. But I never would have recalled this tree without all its imperfections, and yet how its needle tips danced more beautifully in the sparkles above the canopy.
Our meditation this morning is from Richard S. Gilbert. I use his work a lot, as you know, and afterwards we will have the usual time of silence. This is called For the Ambivalent Blessings. For the unabashed blessings of life, we are grateful. We would give thanks for life's ambivalent blessings. For the blessings of middle age aches and pains, we give thanks. They remind us of healthier times past and the wisdom of endurance. For the blessings of a botched and broken world, we give thanks. Its troubles help us transcend our smallness of self in service. For the blessings of grief and bereavement, yes, we give thanks that we have loved enough to know the deep healing of tears. For the blessings of quirky people, we give thanks. We discover anew the quirkiness that lies within each and every one of us. For the blessings of wild and wily weather, we give thanks. We know that such unpredictability is the best training for life. For cosmic caprice with its random burst of showing off, we give thanks. We learn that beneath the routines of life, there will always be surprises. And so for the ordinary blessings of life, we give thanks this day. And for the ambivalent blessings that forever protect us from boredom, we are ever grateful. And now for this brief moment, while our minds are one, I leave you all with the eloquence of silence. Amen.
This is hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Many things are revealed to us as we look at any work of art. Whether we read a biography or it's a novel or we witness a performance or listening to music. Now, certainly, some people will be pleased and some may become depressed, each according to his or her imagination, temperament, emotional, and spiritual needs at the time. Art and activism do different work in the world. Activism, as the name implies, is the activity of challenging and changing power relations. Now, there are many ways of doing activism and being an activist. There are many ways to do this, but the common element is an activity that's targeted toward a discernible end. Now, simply put, the goal of activism is action to create an effect. EFFECT, effect with an E. That's the goal of activism. Art, on the other hand, tends not to have such a clear target. It's hard to say what art is for or what art is for against, because its value often lies in providing us perspective and new ways to envision our world. Its effect is often subtle and it's hard to measure, and it can be confusing or contradictory because the messages can be layered in any work of art. So good art always contains a surplus of meaning. That is to say, there'll be many levels or dimensions of meaning in it. Now, it'll be something we can't quite describe at times or put our finger on, but somehow it moves us. Its goal, if we can even use that word, the goal of art is to stimulate a feeling, to move us emotionally, or to alter our our perception. So art, equally simply stated, is an expression that generates affect. AFFECT. And at first glance, these aims seem at odds with one another. Activism moves the material world, while art moves the heart, the body, and the soul. In fact, however, they are both complementary. Social change doesn't just happen. It happens because people decide to make a change. And as any veteran activist can tell you, people just don't wake up one morning and decide to change their mind and act accordingly. They are personally moved to do so by emotionally powerful stimuli. We're moved by effective experiences to do physical actions that result in concrete effects. So affect with an A leads to effect with an E. Once the artist accepts the obligation which comes with the knowledge of the chaos that undergirds all of human existence, he or she must then explore those ideas of chaos in themselves, within and without. To live a creative life, we must lose our fear of being wrong. Art brings us together because it's an individual expression of the human experience. The very word art has been turned into something these days that is supposed to only happen in museums or concert halls, to be done and seen only by experts. To make us purchase art as a commodity is to keep us divided from each other for the benefit of the few. For we are told that art is a luxury and not a necessity. When educational institutions want to save money, the arts are the first casualties in the battle for school budgets. And this is sad, for as a culture, we seem to have lost what little respect that we have had for art and the artist. For the artist keeps in touch with the music of the soul of the artist, and our souls as well. Emerson expressed this wonderfully when he was speaking of American folk art. He says, I quote, I ask not for the great, the remote, the romantic, what's going on in Italy and or Arabia. I embrace the common. I explore and sit at the feet of the familiar, of the low. Give me insight into today, and you may have your antique worlds, end quote. In a book entitled Art and Education, author Herbert Reed reminds us that art can be revolutionary as well. Reed, uh, Reed saw this as revolution, that art can spark revolutions. This is what he had to say. Art, on the other hand, is eternally disturbing. It is permanently revolutionary. It is so because the artist, in the degree of his or her greatness, always confronts the unknown. And what he or she brings back from that confrontation is a novelty, a new symbol, a new vision of life, the outer image of inward things. His or her importance to society is not that he or she voices received opinions or gives clear expression to the confused feelings of the masses. That's for the politician, the journalist, the demagogue. The artist is what the Germans call ein Rüttler, an upsetter of the established order, end quote. So you see, in this sense, our very lives can be works of art. Life is the canvas that we use to create ourselves and our lives. To my mind, this is a kind of activism. Joseph Zinker is a Gestalt therapist. Now, he's also a visual artist. He paints and sketches. In his book, Creative Process in Gestalt Therapy, he says that he trains his students to look at a person in the same way you would look at a sunset or the way you would look at mountains. He says you take in what you see with pleasure. Take in a person for his or her own sake. After all, he says you would do that with a sunset, correct? Chances are, he writes, you wouldn't say, this sunset should be a little more purple. Those mountains should be taller in the center. They're just not quite right. You would simply look at the mountain. You would simply gaze at the sunset, maybe in awe, at least wonder. And so it is with another person, he says. He says, I look without saying, his skin should be a little more pink, or his hair should be cut shorter. He says, a person simply is. The creative process begins with one's appreciation of what is there in front of us, the essence, the clarity, the impact of what is around us, and all around us. There is life. And this is true for all creative disciplines. Our humanity is most clearly expressed by our individual and collective creativity. It allows us to think outside the box. And this energy continually pushes us to become and to continue becoming. It pushes us to our own self-discovery and self-realization. And it's this eros energy. It's the energy of the first and second chakras. It is the root chakra energy. In Sanskrit, it's called Muladhara. Muladhara in Sanskrit. It means foundation. This chakra keeps us, the root chakra, they keep us grounded and connected to the earth. It gives us roots and supports early formations of our identity, of our sexuality, of our sense of belonging and our security. Life is to be lived. Charlie Parker was once quoted as saying that if you haven't lived it, it won't come out of your horn. Listen to the words of Pablo Picasso here. He says, my mother said to me, if you become a soldier, you'll become a general. If you become a monk, you'll end up as the Pope. He says, instead, I became a painter and I wound up as Picasso. But the artist must proceed with caution. Ernest Hemingway, and you've heard me use this quote before, but I think it's a lot of meaning in it. He advised writers writers, but this holds true for any artist, to let those who want to save the world, let them do so, providing that they get to see it clear and as a whole. The author of A Farewell to Arms realized that more confusion and destruction than good things frequently came from people who were too busy saving the world to find out what it was really about in the first place. Society must accept some things as real, but society must also accept that behind visible reality hides a deeper one, and that all of our actions and achievements rests on unseen things. A society must believe that it is stable, but the artist must know and must let us know that there is nothing stable under heaven. In other words, the artist must take nothing for granted. The artist reminds us that life is change, and the measure of our maturity as people is how well prepared we are to meet those changes. You see, I believe that if we understood ourselves better, we would damage ourselves less. Yet the barrier behind oneself and one knowledge of oneself is high indeed. And there are so many things that we don't want to know. There were so many things we'd rather not know. There are so many levels of fear that divide us. I mean, listen, I'm talking about myself as well, okay? I'm not, saying I'm above. No, there's so much fear. There's so much stuff I won't want to look at. The fears are there, and so we cannot simply just wish they would go away. All we can do is learn to live with them and attempt to overcome them. But the attempt is what's most important, you see. The attempt. And when we cannot learn this, we cannot learn this unless we are willing to tell the truth about ourselves, and the truth about us is always at odds with what we wish to be, individually as well as collectively. It's painful. As human beings, our task is to bridge this gap, to truly become creative, for creativity is a form of activism. The people whom we sometimes fear the most and respect the most are those who are deeply involved in this process because they have looked deep within and they have survived. These people, these artists, we cannot live without. The journey of the artist is a lover's journey because the artist must do what lovers must do, to reveal the loved one to themselves in order to make freedom real. E. Cummings once suggested that to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you like everybody else means to fight the hardest battle any human being can ever fight. And we must never stop fighting. No doubt Cummings was onto something. And in this year, 2020, the term self-isolation has expanded its meaning for the artist from a voluntary separation intended to protect the creative mind from the distractions of community to a government-ordered separation for the purpose of protecting the physical health of that community. Normally, when artists are told to stay away from the writer's desk, the easel, the rehearsal hall, they dream of being there. That's where they want to be. But now that they are being confined to the apartment, to the home, to the bedroom, the studio, the sheds, I wonder what they feel. No doubt at times community can feel like an obstacle to creativity, an annoyance at best, at times perhaps a burden. I know I feel that way sometimes, but I'm an introvert. You know, I love humanity. It's people I can't stand. But then again, our humanity is our only real burden. And at times, our very lives can seem like a burden. But we have to remember that we don't have to get up every day and battle for our humanity each and every morning. We don't have to do that. We need only do what is infinitely more difficult That is to accept it. The Buddhist scriptures called the Dhammapada tells us, as the archer fires his arrow, as the carpenter carves his wood, the wise shape their lives. What we create of our lives on this planet is just as creative and artistic as any painting by Picasso or poem by Langston Hughes or Alice Walker or any Shakespearean sonnet. Listen to the words of one of my favorite poets, Nobel laureate Derek Walcott. He writes, "The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, 'Sit here and eat.' You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, but who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit and feast on your life." I guess what I really want you to hear this morning is that I believe it is possible to create, even without ever writing a word or painting a picture, but by simply molding one's inner life, which creates the outer experience, the outer life, if you will, as within, so it is without. For that too is a deed. That too is being creative. That too is being an artist and an activist. And so if Picasso is correct when he says that the meaning of life is to find your gift and the purpose of life is to give it away, then perhaps Vincent van Gogh is correct when he says that there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people.
This is hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
Our closing words: let us be humble, for the worst thing in the world is of the same stuff that we're made of. Let us be confident, for we too are composed of the same stuff as the stars. Thank you. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon.
For this last piece, it's another piece of mine, which I wrote called You Know the Place.